Common sense tells us that if we want to improve at something, we need to invest time and effort into it. And that makes perfect sense, I think, in pretty much any skill that we're trying to learn. When it comes to handstands specifically, we need to be very strategic with the amount of time that we invest into our training sessions, because it's easy to go wrong if you overdo it. And it's also easy to not invest enough effort. If you take on too many drills and you grow exhausted past the first hour and a half, your efficacy is going to decrease dramatically the longer you continue this way. It's not only a workout, it's a tremendous exercise in focus, and it's a very sensitive skill because we have to feel our way through it. So for example, the way I used to do it is I would have no more than 2, possibly 3 minutes rest in between each rep or each set that I did. So that way I don't grow unfocused and I don't grow cold, because the second you sit down, something happens. It's like the air is being released out of you. Be very mindful of the amount of time that you spend in between your sets, and also be very mindful of any other distractions present, because if you go on your phone, you might as well forget about your training session. It's okay to have music playing because you do need music for motivation, but if you have your phone nearby, or if you talk too much, or if you rest too long, of course you're gonna need 5 hours. Now, for shorter training sessions, the reason why I suggest that if you are starting out is because in a shorter training session, by the time you're finished, it leaves you wanting more. You're not as exhausted, and the elements that you do outline to work on, you can work on them with more focus and precision and concentration. Let's say you have 4 or 5 drills for a 2-hour session. The few things that you do get to work on, you pay a lot of attention to what you're doing, and it makes you more productive since you only have a limited number of tries, and so you really want to make the most of it. Interesting thing about technique, the reason why I want to mention technique is because in a shorter session, we'll learn how to develop technique. Now, in a longer session, technique helps us continue doing what we're doing more effectively, even when we're tired and exhausted and we can't focus. And what we're doing looks great no matter how we feel, because sometimes we feel great, our position doesn't look so good. At times we don't feel good, our position looks better than we expected. But generally speaking, you could tell when the person gets tired judging by their lines. So what technique allows you to do is to keep better lines no matter how much your body's burning and hurting in the moment, which it will, because that's the nature of being upside down on your hands. But we can learn to work through that pain and get used to it instead of trying to run away from it. Once you reach intermediate level, you can definitely indulge in longer training sessions. Having figured out the technique in a focused and concentrated and properly intended way, you can now exercise it in a longer session. It's one thing to work really hard, but if your lines look like crap, you're not going to gain much progress in handstands. Yes, you will gain strength and stamina, but if you don't have balance, you will always be frustrated about the fact that you're not sure what it takes to improve at it, no matter how hard you work. So we need to work smart, we need to be more effective with our time, and we need to learn how to extend our focus and being in the present moment, whether we work on our handstands for an hour and a half hour, 2 hours, or whether we work for 4 or 5 hours. Once you reach a certain point, it is a good idea to really spend a long time just holding your positions. Once the entries and weight shifts and exits have been taken care of, you can really spend a long time on learning how to hold a position. And that's what solidifies your skill. Ideally, you shouldn't do any conditioning before handstands. If you're using your triceps specifically, it's going to be hard to keep your elbows straight. I know for me that's the case, so therefore I leave all of the conditioning and stamina for the very end, when I'm most tired. And if I'm able to do it when I'm most tired, that means I'm adding something. I felt like I'm growing stronger because of that. We have to always try to look at the bigger picture and try different things to see what works. Just because it's difficult doesn't mean you cannot achieve it, and it doesn't mean that you personally don't have what it takes. It simply means that we need a different approach.